Hey everyone, it's Adam DeGraide. Big news, David versus Goliath. Shop on the DavidVSGoliathPodcast.com website. Get your iPhone covers, your cups, even cups like this. Check it out. A lot of fun. Support the show. Show off your swag. We really appreciate it. On to the episode. Coming up today on David versus Goliath.
I really had a passion and a gift for sharing music with people.
You just hope you don't have a prima donna singer.
Exactly.
I'm stealing your kid's guitar strings.
Welcome to today's episode of David versus Goliath, a podcast dedicated to helping small businesses leverage technology to not only help them compete against their large competitors, but win. Your host is currently the CEO of Anthem Business Software, a three-time Inc. 500 recipient, and a serial entrepreneur with a passion to help small businesses everywhere find, serve, and keep more customers profitably. Please join me in welcoming your host, Adam DeGraide.
Hey everyone, it's Adam DeGraide with another amazing edition of the David versus Goliath podcast. Today we have an awesome young entrepreneur that I met through the application on our website, DavidVSGoliathPodcast.com, where you can subscribe and apply to be on the show. Last couple of episodes have been from people who have applied, and we are so grateful to have them. The great stories. And so Eric Branner is his name, and he started a company called Fonz.com, which is Fons.com. Before we get to the episode, today's episode is brought to you by Anthem Software, where you can find, serve, and keep more customers profitably with their all-in-one small business solution of software, marketing, and consulting. Every business has a song. Let their software and marketing system sing yours, and that's AnthemSoftware.com. Also, if you haven't had a chance, go check out my book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It's called The Adventures of Jackson, the Young Field Mouse. Kids learn about three things: bravery, the value of listening, and gratitude. Those three things I find are fantastically important for everyone, including kids and including myself. Well, with no further ado, we're going to get right into it today with Eric Branner from Fonz.com. Eric, welcome to the David versus Goliath podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Hi.
Once again, another fellow entrepreneur with a setup like me, guitars everywhere, music everywhere. When I got your application through the DVG website, which by the way is awesome. You're only the second application that I've actually accepted to have on the podcast. I thought your story was amazing. You and I have a very similar background. We both love music. Our parents were all in music. My parents performed professionally. Your parents performed professionally, and your grandparents, I guess, as well too. And what was so fascinating to me is that you studied to be a classical guitarist. And it's so interesting to me because for whatever reason, musicians with type A personalities, which is what I have, we have a tendency to be entrepreneurs in the future and have our own thing. And when I started looking at what you did and finding some people to help you develop Fonz and how you had a problem of your own, and then you created software to solve that, and then you realize, hey, there's other people that could use it too. It really resonated with me big time. So Eric, why don't you take a few minutes to tell people a little bit about A, your background, and then B, Fonz.com and what it is exactly.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I'll be brief, but yeah. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. I'm a musician. I grew up playing music, and I came from a very musical family, and also an entrepreneurial family. My father was a serial entrepreneur, so when I went into the world of becoming a musician and wanted to do that full time, I had a lot of support for it, right? And I moved to Seattle, and because I grew up in a very rural part of Virginia. I grew up in a log cabin in the Shenandoah Valley. Beautiful childhood experience. Moved out to Seattle to play music and further my studies and my musical career, and just really fell in love with the Pacific Northwest. And, got to do great work with like the Seattle Opera, the Seattle Symphony, doing marketing and development type work for them. But found that I really loved teaching. As I got a little bit older, I really had a passion and a gift for sharing music with people.
That's great.
And it injected me into the community here, to where I kind of got to know everybody through knowing their kids, right? And so I built this amazing network over time from having a little music school, right? And really investing in young people and, people of all ages, really. And I was really happy. It was between my wife is an actor, right? And between the two of us, we were able to kind of like have this life that was awesome. And I always knew that at some point I was going to either want to go to law school or get an MBA. That was just kind of like you said the type A creative personality. I had kind of moved past that era of wanting to be, the concert classical music career is very interesting in that it begins with competitions and you're traveling around the country doing these competitions, kind of competing for small cash prizes. And it's not super awesome. And I kind of burned out of it. And
is it anything like the, because when I was growing up and learning how to play music and, my mom and dad would force me to practice and I would yell at them. They said, "You're going to thank me someday." And my brother and I talked about this even on a previous episode of DVG. I'm so grateful that I did it now. It kind of reminds me of because I wasn't in that space, right? I was more jazz, freelance, rock and roll, that type of scenario versus classically trained. So like when you hear my stuff, it's either hard rock or it's got a little bit of a jazz, mellow influence to it on the piano. But was it a little bit like the kids' beauty pageants? In other words, you had all these talented kids that were brought into an area to compete against each other. And if you almost like the spelling bee moms and dads or the volleyball, my daughter from a previous marriage was a club volleyball. And so the parents that went to those things, like if you lost, it was, it's a miracle many of the parents didn't get arrested. Was it similar?
I honestly, more so than I would have liked to have been. It was that scene where it's like it's music and it's art and being competitive around it is kind of bizarre as an adult, right? And it creates interesting relationships. And so anyway, that thing I kind of moved on from it. I became a studio session player and just played a lot of gigs. I love rock too. I saw that. So I was able to just kind of suss out this great life. But I guess around 6 years ago, I was just really hungry for something different. And I was, that feeling of being like, I've been doing this for a long time. I was successful at it. I was raising my family. But I was really ready to just kind of inject something else into my existence. And I was thinking, okay, MBA time, law school time. And then I just had this opportunity to work with somebody who is a very well-known person in Silicon Valley, who I'd known through the Seattle scene for a very long time, who basically gave me this opportunity to do a tech startup.
That's great.
Which had never crossed my mind. But he's like, hey, you're running a very successful business. And what if we automate what you do? Because I know my wife, Allison, was running my music school and it took her, 12, 15 hours a week to do a great job. We were a real white glove, local kind of institution. And, we had really compelling, awesome customers that we need to take care of. And so anyway, next thing you know, I'm in this room full of engineers, designers, UX, UI people, basically to study the work that I did to basically automate my music school. And very quickly they realized, because I thought that I knew it all. They're like, everything you're doing is so inefficient. Like whatever this model is that you've done, we're going to gut it. And it was a battle. And I'm really glad we did have that battle because it was that math and that kind of algorithmic approach to business operations that most creatives never think of.
Yeah, totally.
They said, you need to go interview 500 more people. And so I set off and made a bunch of relationships, not just looking at music schools, but looking at personal trainers, gyms, because they're so motivated, academic tutors, anybody that kind of trades time for money. We started looking into these. They're relationships, right? They're relationship-based business where there's trust, it's recurring, it's developed over time. And so that was the basis for Fonz, is to create this platform that built a really healthy, beautiful professional relationship that was automated and took that friction out. So
I love it.
Yeah.
I was amazed. It's so fascinating. My son right now, who's 6 years old, is getting a lesson from somebody who uses a software app that we schedule on, that we pay it on. It's probably similar. It might even be Fonz. I never even asked him. It actually could be. There's a dramatic need for simplifying and automating these processes in businesses' lives. And a lot of people don't think about it, but you did. And I got to tell you, kudos to you, man, because I love the name of what Fonz means too. You put here on the sheet, it says it means fountain or wellspring in Latin. And as soon as I said that, I said, I got to interview this guy because not only is he a sharp entrepreneur. He's obviously a decent musician. And I don't, do you have any music, by the way? I'd love for you to send me some of your classical performances.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, because you know what we're going to do? Actually, before I continue, we're going to play a quick 30-second clip of that right now. Here's Eric's song. We'll be right back. And we're back. Eric, that was amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. And, you know, when you think about the fact that my 6-year-old right now is upstairs getting a lesson and that he's learning how to play piano, just like I did when I was a kid, but his piano teacher has software that can help him automate and make his business something that he can manage more effectively and efficiently. Kudos to you. Congrats on the success so far. And you haven't been able to do it alone. I noticed you're building a team. You're a startup in a lot of ways, right? You're still a small company, which is why we have you on here on the David versus Goliath podcast. We're championing the small guy, taking on the big guy. But you have a passion to help soulpreneurs. Like you said, if you're exchanging time for money, Fonz.com. But the name, Fountain and Wellspring in Latin, what made you think of that?
You know, it was an opportunity, you know, and it made sense as we were doing our branding and really thinking about it. And plus, it was a 4letter.com that came up that we were thrilled to be able to make that happen. And so the stars just kind of aligned, right? Because, you know, our logo is very similar too. If you look at the logo, if you look at it one way, it's four people, you know, holding hands and looking up. And if you look at another way, they're reading a book, right? It's one of those dual images. And so, you know, the work that we do and the people that we support, it's people that are like really central to communities, right? These people that give, you know, I see myself as a guitar teacher and I still teach 10, 15 students a week because it's my passion, right?
That's awesome.
But, you know, you see what this does over time. These people are they're investing in their community. So, and they're these wellsprings of knowledge and fountains of, you know, education. And we love supporting them. It's really cool. And to your point, it's like they're not necessarily baked in with business acumen.
Yeah.
Right. We go to art school. We're trained. Our teachers historically weren't really business savvy because back in the day, that wasn't necessarily what was appropriate for a creative or an artist. Right. And now it was just assumed you had a trust fund or something like that. And now it's like there's a whole realm of, you know, from the music schools we support to the tutoring firms we support, of people that are really business savvy, that are getting into it and realizing, yeah, this is a great way to make a living. This is maybe the way for me to make a living as a creative and not go get a job at Starbucks.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. It's a lot. It's interesting. I don't know if you've seen the episode that I interviewed my brother from Dirt Poor Robins. He is basically built this brand and this band online over the years to have over 1 million streams a month, tens of thousands of views on his videos, 500,000+ fans worldwide that download and stream his music on a regular basis. And what's so interesting is that he shared the principles of what you have to learn today to be competitive in music and to make money. Because as you know, the business of music has changed dramatically. However, the business of teaching and training, and there's not like there's less artists or less musicians in the world. It's just that there may not be as many avenues, even though there's a limited number of avenues digitally. When it comes to the business side, you're not only giving them practical ability to learn the skills of being a musician, but now you come alongside and you say, hey, this software can help you become a teacher in a profession if it's something that you're called to do as a musician. I think that is just very rewarding. And I wish that I had it, because who knows, maybe I would have taught more. I don't know. I don't really have the patience for teaching. But my teachers will tell you I also didn't have the patience for learning. But
sound like a rock star.
Nevertheless, here I am, and I play pretty good, you know. But I think you'd be pretty amazed. Now, do you have an actual website that people can listen to your music personally, or is it something that you really focus on your students' music?
Now I'm more focused on my students' music. I put up YouTube videos. I mean, I still do like an educational YouTube video, and I'll put up like a classical piece and perform there from time to time. But my focus these last years has moved towards building this business, that it's like I've got young children and I've got a company that's really exciting, and I'm still trying to teach some, and something kind of had to give. And then the pandemic came, and the few regular gigs. So I love playing live. Like playing live is kind of the thing I love doing, and that kind of became the straw that broke the camel's back a little bit.
Wow. I tell you, man, that I'm glad you're a tech company in Seattle, because I wouldn't want to have been any other business in Seattle during the lockdowns. And I am grateful to be a Floridian. I don't know, you probably watched from across the country. It was a whole different world down here, man. Like it's a different planet. And it was a lot. I was grateful to be a part of it. But at least you had the ability to teach your kids, I would imagine, virtually at the time. So you probably had to shift a little bit to that. Once again, technology being involved and even teaching and training. And then maybe in some cases even giving you the ability to do more. I don't know if that's the case or not.
Well, that's a great observation. And that was, that whole thing is like we knew right away in March of last year, they're like, we need to build a Zoom integration tomorrow. Right, to where that got, we're just trying to like constantly seek out friction points, right?
Do you have that now? Do you have that in the Fonz app?
Oh, absolutely. So it's like, basically the way it works is like when you as a client and me as a provider, when I go to teach, that agenda for the day has all those links set up. So that if you think about the friction points, like as a human being, as a creative, I'm not comfortable saying, hey, Adam, you forgot to pay me. And like, or weren't you late on your payment? Or why is this check not enough?
You owe me 6 months of payment. I'm stealing your kids' guitar strings.
Exactly. So we want to take those things that artists especially are not generally, or small business owners usually struggle with, and automate them out. Like, so Fonz does the policing, it automates cancellation policy. It'll send you a text. Like it'd send you a text the day of your son's lesson and say, here's the Zoom link. Don't forget to come 4 hours before. It'll send you an email a couple days before. So it does these. And at the end of that lesson, it either bills you in whatever way or bills you monthly. It integrates that billing, integrates the payments with the scheduling. And that's the thing that just takes a ton of stress and friction points out of these people. And so, yes, we needed to realize that most education was going to go vertical. And what we found, which was crazy, is all of our providers that we're observing, especially academic tutors, musicians, personal trainers, they all went online last year, and then they just started thriving. And I used to maintain 2 studios here in Seattle, one in West Seattle and one on Capitol Hill, and I'm still teaching mostly virtually. And what happened is parents said, "Hey, I don't have to drive to see Branner anymore.
Yeah."
Let's just keep doing the Zoom. We'll come see him once a month or whatever, but that way I don't have to get stuck in traffic.
And it's interesting. It's so fascinating that you say that, because that is so true. We're going to take a break here in a second.
Sure.
But as a parent, like I have our teacher come to my house because I don't want to drive there. It saves me like an hour every time. Now you pay a little extra for it, but if you could have the best of both worlds, a great teacher with technology and the ability to automate, schedule, and take payments, why not do it? You're with Eric Branner from Fonz.com. I'm Adam DeGraide, your host of David versus Goliath. Once again, learning about an amazing business. Stay tuned for a message from Anthem Software, our corporate sponsor. We'll be right back.
Anthem Business Software System is designed to specifically help small businesses just like yours find, serve, and keep more customers profitably. We do this by providing you with the most powerful software, automations, and marketing services to help your business compete and win in this ever-changing digital world. Take a short video tour at anthemsoftware.com.
Anthem Software, every business has a song. Let our software sing yours.
And we're back with Eric Branner, the concert guitarist extraordinaire, the CEO and founder of Fonz. Look at that. I was so excited. I almost literally ripped my microphone off. Fonz.com. And Eric, man, I got to tell you, congratulations on your success so far. And I'm excited to see where the future is going to have you go. Now, you have a family. You got 2 kids. Are you raising them? Do they learn from dad too?
No. Of course, my daughter's studying flamenco. She's 15, and she's studying with I have in the world of classical music, classical guitar players and flamenco guitar players. They're like completely different instruments, but they're similar. And so Edie's studying flamenco, but both my children are very much gravitated towards athletics, right? Which is how the universe works. So we're learning about the competitive sports world. And my son, he's 10. He does a lot of capoeira, which has a lot of music injected in it.
What is capoeira?
Capoeira is a Brazilian martial art, and you've probably seen it. It looks sometimes almost like dancing. There's a lot of music involved. It's a great culture, and my son got turned on to it when he was like 4 and fell in love with it, and he's been competing internationally. Like, he's really into it.
I wonder if my producer can find a clip right now of capoeira, just a quick clip. Let's run that really quick so people know what we're looking at.
Foi luta por luta, não existe melhor. O que existe é melhor lutador. Luta por luta, não existe melhor. O que existe é melhor lutador.
And there you go. That's capoeira, folks. I had no idea what it was, but it is pretty cool. It's amazing. And so here you are, hoping that they would follow in Dad's footsteps, maybe. One's doing dance with music, but one's playing music, right? Flamenco? Totally different?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's a ripping flamenco guitar player. Yeah. And they've had a ton of culture and music. I'm not going to be the one to push them because I could easily become that dad.
Oh, yeah,
right?
Totally.
It's like, so I'm letting them find it.
The only thing you have to worry about, Eric, is that they have one good lick. I tell people all the time, you only need one good lick to play in a one-lick band. And that's so true. And that's been my story, my life story.
Get the tapping condensed into eruption down and call it good, right?
Right, exactly. As long as I can play Smoke on the Water backwards, you're all set. Now, question for you in regards to your team, because people are critical. I know you have a small team right now, but I would imagine that they're very integral. So
Yes.
when somebody comes on board with Fonz.com and they sign up, there's probably people that help them learn the software application. There's people that support the application. Tell us a little bit about your internal team and how you're able to get it done.
Yeah, well, it's starting from the top. The big investment we made up front, which was also a calculated risk and knowing this was going to be a real long tail project, right, is that we went really big on engineering and design in our first couple of years. So at one point, there were like 15 engineers working on building this project. And the person who founded the company with me, our chief investor, this guy, Jared Ray, he's a true visionary in the whole tech world. He's been doing it for a long time. He's a great CTO, and he really was responsible for that architecture, asking the hard questions, really putting me in my place of like coming from a place of thinking I knew everything to starting over, right? And analyzing these operations. And so now the process of using Fonz is much more, we also realized that people were really stoked that we built the product here in Seattle and that the engineers were stateside and that we were able to release features very quickly because of how we architected the platform. We also found that they were very delighted that we had live customer success, right? So when people type into that box, it's a person there. And we found that was an investment that it became central to our marketing, really.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. People are here, they answer, they respond. Updates are done quickly. What language is it built in?
The tech stack has a multiple different layers.
Are you using Python? Are you using...
No, mostly Java.
Java, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But the team is very agile. We kind of changed it around. And so the bottom line is we kind of integrate the sales team into the marketing team, into the operations team, right? And they're constantly on a feedback loop to where when we start to see more people writing in with a feature request or something that they don't love in the flow, we're able to pipe that up into engineering quickly. And this is the great thing of having a smaller team is you're able to make adjustments and do releases more quickly.
Yeah, so. No doubt. Now, a lot of software applications are good at getting acquisition and then sometimes have a challenge of getting activation. In other words, somebody signs up, activating them quickly is critical, right? Because if 10 days goes by, 5 days goes by, and they've already signed up and they're not using it, you kind of like, That's a challenge. How have you been addressing with that? What is some of the onboarding process that you deal with?
It seems like you know this world very intimately, because that is.
I build software that's what I do for a living, my friend.
I was delighted when we first launched and we were just getting a ton of signups. And I was so tickled that I didn't realize that nobody was converting.
Yeah. Everyone's signing up and then it sits there.
Oh, yeah. And I was just thinking, I got this thing. This is great. But, our onboarding flow was terrible because, we were a new product when we first launched. And it was such a learning curve to realize how hard that is to guide someone through in a way that's like that.
And no matter how simple you make that app, no matter how easy, I made the most simple softwares. People still, have glazed looks in their head. No matter how many training videos you put, I feel like there's still an element. There has to be like that human connection, getting them involved, hand-holding them through it, at least in the beginning phases of it. But then once you get them rolling down that hill, so to speak, right? The snowball gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's why they stay longer, because it's activation is the key. So what are you? It really
is.
What are you doing?
Finding value in it.
Yeah, what are you doing to help that? Hey, congrats, you signed up, your life's going to change, then what?
Well, fortunately, now we have a nucleus of delighted people that are telling our story enough for us, right? That people are coming into it understanding the real fundamentals of the software better. Which is really helpful. But then, what we found is we're super high touch up front. So we, when someone signs up for our app, I send them a personalized welcome video through this app called Bonjoro. I don't know if you know that.
I've heard of the app, yeah.
Everyone that signs up, I'm like, hey, I'm Eric. Thank you for being here. I can't wait to learn more about you.
You got a great like surfer vibe, because I know you're a surfer as well too. You got that.
Yes.
You got that cool like surfer vibe, like hipster vibe. It's good for a tech company, by the way. My buddy Topher Grant runs a company called Giddy Up. Does about $500 million a year in revenue, and he walks around with basically dreads. They're not really dreads, but they could be dreads. And he wears shorts and sandals, and he walks out on stage barefoot and gives speeches to thousands of people. It's like perfect for that tech business. So I'd imagine getting a video from Eric Branner is definitely something that is, this is going to be pretty cool, because you're dealing with artistic people as well too, right? So when they see that this is an application that was built by someone like them for them, that must be a big win for you.
Yeah, I think so. There's that. And then we know that if once the app's running, it runs itself. So we know if we can front load it and get them onboarded in a way that's efficient. So we're high touch up front. We love to give people a demo. We love to help them with onboarding. And then we know that, like, especially with a bigger school, if you've got 20 or 30 teachers, or for firms, those are more high touch. And then once they're off to the races, they're off to the races. Right. So that's our goal is to get them.
So for every 10 people that sign up early on, was it 2 of them used it? For every 10 that signed up now?
Early on, we probably, that's a great question. I'd say when we first launched, we were probably converting like 10 to 15%. And now we're like around 40.
That's great. So you get 1,000, you get 400 real users. That's great.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. So few people actually ask that, but those are such, we trying to move those needles just the tiniest little bit makes such a big difference.
Oh man, those KPIs are critical, because it's not just about downloads, it's about activation, and then it's about retention once they're activated, right? And the challenge that all software companies have, if you're watching DVG right now and you have a software company, not only is it how many users, but what's the retention rate, right? And then how do you handle those that never really converted? Do you count them as not being part of your retention rate? Should you count them? How do you do it? The key is consistency. So however you've done it from the beginning, continue doing it at the end, because when the time comes for you to exit, and at least you'll have a compelling, consistent message to that private equity firm or that strategic buyer as to here's how we've managed our metrics, here's how we've always managed our metrics, so they can really see the past and where you are now to get that value, right? That multiple that you're looking to build. That is.
So you're saying keep the KPIs consistent and keep the goals and consistent throughout your journey?
Yeah, because at the end you can say, this is how bad we were here, but here's where we are now. So if we have 1,000 and only 100 are active here, but now we have 1,000 and 400 are active, right? So the 600 who never really used it, you may not even want to count them as users because they only downloaded it. So it's just a matter of how you look at it. But that makes a huge difference for you, Eric, in the future. This is great advice you're getting. Should be thinking. Make sure you rewatch this, by the way. Just be consistent with how you do it. What's been your most difficult thing besides activation in your business so far?
Without question, the most difficult thing is I did things as the way they've always been done before, right? And what we did is I ran into a wall of reason through math and designers and this moment of what automation is able to do, and changed. The challenge for us has been getting, and it's over time, it's easier, is selling that value proposition to say, hey, I know this is hard, but if you automate this stuff, you're going to make 30% more, right? You're going to save yourself 12 hours a week by doing this, because people are so used to doing things in general. If you look at our demographics of, say, the National Music Teachers Association, they're in their mid 50s as their average age, right? And at first, time is correcting this, but we had a real hard time. We came out of the gates with this thing that basically turned my business into an Uber, where all of a sudden everything's automated, and I loved it. I was like, wow, I was our first customer. I was killing it. I went from having like $8 or $9 grand in outstanding payments to zero. I never sent an invoice again. No invoices. And so I think,
well, you're not just saving them on collections. You're saving them on the time that it would be required. So what is their hourly rate times 9 hours plus the monies you never collected before in the past? It costs you X to do this. That's your ROI. This is a no-brainer. Here's how long it takes you to learn the software. I mean,
right. You're asking such really good questions, because these are like really fundamental. And I really appreciate you asking them too, by the way, because they don't come up very much. But and the other thing is, we're dealing with highly educated people, like physics tutors, concert classical pianists that are household names. People that run a yoga studio or something that have done a lot of education. They like to fancy themselves as having business acumen.
Yeah.
Right. And I did too. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm making like 6 figures in Seattle, having to buy a house. Look at me. And then the reality hits you. It's hard to say, oh wait, this is not an efficient operational system. Yeah, you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
You're making a lot of money despite yourself, because of sheer talent, grit, and will and determination, which is amazing. Now, Eric, this has been awesome. I mean, I think our listeners are absolutely loving this. I got to take another break from another sponsor. But when we come back, I do want to switch gears and talk a little bit about courage. Because if you've watched the DVG podcast, we really believe here that giant was slayed with that stone, that single smooth stone. It was actually 5, but only 1 to kill that giant. And that stone is called courage. Stay tuned. We'll be right back on David versus Goliath. Hang on.
At King 16, our agency has done some exciting things over the years. We've designed and built amazing experiences for customers and launched several vehicles for Audi and Porsche. We've thrown extravagant parties inside whiskey distilleries and featured amazing products for brands like Ray-Ban and Fossil. We booked some incredible talent and designed cutting-edge stages for those performances. We even threw a red carpet gala in the middle of nowhere on a horse farm with hundreds of celebrities, which was difficult. I guess you could say we've done some amazing things for our brands and partners. Now the only question is, what will King 16 do for you? Find out at king16.com. That's King, SIXTEEN.com.
And we're back with Eric Branner from Fonz.com. Now, Eric, I've got a solo album coming out in a few months. Most people don't even know that. It's called Adam DeGraide, The Calm, which is the exact opposite of me, which makes it funny. But it's actually not a funny album. It's an album of my piano. I played on a Steinway. And then my cousin helped me orchestrate a string quartet. And It's acoustic guitar, string quartet, and acoustic piano, instrumental. It's coming out in a couple of months. I heard my first few tracks. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tease the audience right now with 15 seconds of a snippet. Here it is. And that's not even mixed, and those are string samples. I guarantee that the guy my cousin who's arranging the strings for me is like, why would you show them the string samples versus the regular strings? Because David, it's taking months to create this project, so you got to get some information out there to people. And so
build in public.
And it's funny because it goes to the thing of courage, right? So this year I turned 50, and my midlife crisis, I guess, has been trying to do everything in my life I've always wanted to do. I've had a kid's story I've been telling for 26 years.
That.
Wrote it, putting an album out. I've always promoted other people's music, never did my own. Doing that, So podcast. I've always wanted to do a podcast where I could help other small business owners learn and secrets and tips and tricks. And so doing that. And so that's what's really cool about life, man, is that, the difference between entrepreneurs who kill it and those who don't is hesitancy. Those who hesitate die in the vine. Those who have action live in the light. And action is what it takes to create Fonz.com. And courage. When you sat back that day and you said, I've got all these different choices, and I know you kind of stumbled into it because you ran into some really smart people. But that still takes courage, man. And it takes humility to say, I don't really know it all, and I need to open myself up and learn from others. What was the intangible in you that helped you do this with Fonz.com?
Gosh, I'm glad you asked that, because I remember being in our first meetings and I was like, I'd take notes and I'd be like, what does UX mean? I was like, what is that? What's the difference in UX, UI again? And it became funny, and the team were like, obviously this guy's not an idiot. Like, he can play a Bach fugue on the guitar, which is pretty incredible, but this is hilarious that we're building a tech company. And you know what? I actually really learned in that moment to appreciate being around, to not knowing. And that's something that I've enjoyed throughout my experience of learning this company, is that I love to read. I'm comfortable practicing. I can play guitar 7 hours a day and I can work, I know I can sit with a metronome for 5 hours a day. And I'm perfect. I'm type A, this thing of wanting to do. And so applying the first couple years of Fonz were the greatest learning period of my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Dealing with the lawyers, and before I'd go to a lawyer meeting, I would download every one of the documents about incorporating, and I would just read, and then I'd go on Amazon, and I love learning about constraint theory. I just have a bookshelf of operations and marketing, and I just was so excited to be learning so much so quickly. Music takes so much refinement that it's like decades of just grinding to get these improvements. But here I was able to be able to learn so quick. And I think that was my thing, is that I was really ready. I was really hungry to learn. And then I also knew there was something else that happened, as I was fortunate enough through these connections to be hanging out with a lot of VCs and kind of got into the local startup community here. And there was a couple people that I met with that kind of did the whole thing that were kind of negative. Right. And they were just kind of like, yeah, good luck, whatever. And there's something about that moment that fires you up. And I think about every day, like this random conversation with a person that was just kind of like looking down on the idea and was like, that's never going to work. SMB space is not worth going into. Good luck. If you're wasting your time, because basically there was a distant relative to this that had burned kind of the VC community for other reasons here in Seattle.
Sure.
Which is an errant story, but that really lit me up, and just that challenge of being like, oh gosh, I got the fire. And then
it's like that kid that tells you in high school you'll amount to nothing, and the teacher says you'll be a bum. Or in my case, I was in the principal's office for 2 weeks straight. Adam, you're going to amount to nothing. Well, look at me now, buddy. Look at me now.
Yeah.
And the difference, man, is doing. It's not just thinking. It's not just hoping. It starts with belief, number one, and then execution, number two. There's only two reasons why something fails, by the way. It's a deficiency of knowledge or a deficiency of execution. In most cases, it's not knowledge why we fail. It's execution. And so I give you kudos, man. What advice do you give to somebody who's going through the exact same thing right now? They're maybe on that cusp of starting their business, or they have a business, but they're holding on to something else that's, part-time to keep their living going. What would you tell them? If there's a fire burning in them, what do you tell them, Eric?
Yeah, I say, obviously, if you have the opportunity with this one brief life to take a risk and to do something that could really transform it, I think win or lose at the end of the day, you really kind of got to take it if you can handle it. But I'll also say it is very intense. Like the amount of work, like all my friends that have corporate jobs, I work so much more than they do, right? And I don't turn it off. Like there's no vacation to my mind. My mind starts going at like 3 a.m. and it's like I want it to win so much that I enjoy it so much, and I'm so dedicated to my team and to our customers, right? Like their livings are depending on this thing working. And so I would say that I don't think it's for everybody. I would also say I'm addicted to it, and I would definitely do it again. I would do it with friends, because like you go into, it's such a battle. It's like being in an awesome band, right? Where everybody has to contribute. Every day is going to be a battle.
You just hope you don't have a prima donna singer.
Yeah, no lead singers. Exactly.
Or Animal the drummer. Yeah.
Exactly.
Every good band has a prima donna singer, though, in a Animal style drummer. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I would say that would be, definitely, I want to say, yeah, do it, go for it. And at the same time, I want to say, yeah, also know that it's like that moment of having kids. It's intense. Like you're committing to something, you're raising money, you're building something, you're going after a dream. You have to be open to the math that they're not all going to succeed. That this is a learning. But see, what I would tell them though, Eric, is if there's a fire that's burning in you and you're watching and listening to this, and you can't help yourself but think about doing something like this, that is the still small voice inside of you saying, go for it. And even to Eric's point, if you fail the first time, fail forward, fail upward, fall up the stairs. You're not falling down them, you're falling up the stairs. And we've all done that. What is the one thing in your life, Eric, in your business that you wish you did differently? Well, I think I was fortunate enough to have great mentorship to guide me down a road that was just right for what I needed, because the mentorship that I was given led me down a path of learning. And like, it was very patient. Like I had people around me set up to let me make enough mistakes, but also stop me. And I think if I could be a second-time founder, there's so many things that I know, what strengths I have, what strengths I can lean into. Like I'm a community builder. So I would have gone into building community directly. I wouldn't have started being like, oh, we're going to build this app and go and do a bunch of Facebook ads and try to get downloads that nobody's going to activate, right? I would have started building community. I would have started, because that has been what's been effective. So I think really, if I were to, there's not much I regret because of how grateful I am for the experience to have done this. If I were doing it again with what I know now, the path would be obviously much different, because there would be a lot of mistakes that I wouldn't make as far as team and like which core features I would focus on first, but I'm just grateful. I had someone that was really strong enough and wise enough to not only to know the right mistakes to let me feel the pain of making mistakes, but also that was looking at this as a long tail thing of having this be a long tail company, but also to know when to say, stop, that's too much. You can't do that.
It's great, Eric. It has been amazing having you on the DVG podcast. Have you enjoyed yourself today?
Oh, it's been a blast. Kindred spirits, man.
No doubt about it, man. We got to jam together sometime. And,
I would love that.
And I got to have you back maybe like 18 months from now to see where you were now to where you are then. And kudos to you and congratulations on all your success so far. It's Eric Branner at Fonz, FONS.com. And no, he did not pay to be on this podcast. He will tell you that. Other people pay to be on this podcast, but not my guests. And don't you forget that, watchers and listeners. We want this show to be about education, inspiration, and activation, and that's exactly what you get here on the David versus Goliath podcast. I'm your host, Adam DeGraide. We'll see you next week. Have a fantastic day.